This is a conversation I'm so excited to share with you. Hal Elrod is the author of The Miracle Morning. He's the creator of this. It's really like a miracle morning movement. I've been wanting to talk to Hal since I picked up his book 5 years ago. It changed my life. And you're going to hear about Hal and different aspects of his story. But if you want to learn about The Miracle Morning, I'm going to link to some other podcasts. I didn't want to spend my time having Hal break down the steps. I'll break them down for you to give you a sense of what Miracle Morning is so you have context. When Hal was in a really difficult phase of his life in 2008, it was during the financial crisis. He was dealing with a lot of stress, lost a lot of money, lost clients, and he really needed to balance himself. And he started to do these rituals in the morning, and his wife was like, this is a miracle, because he was talking about how great he felt. And then he took these steps and put them into Miracle Morning, which now has over 2 million copies sold. Millions of people have been doing this ritual in the morning. And I started doing it consistently. I do it inconsistently, but these rituals and habits have been life-changing for me. Hal's been in my corner. So these are the steps. The acronym is SAVERS. So if you want to do the Miracle Morning, there's an app as well. We'll link to this, and I'll link to some of the podcasts where he breaks down different aspects of the Miracle Morning. But you start off with silence, reduce stress, improve mental clarity by beginning each day with peaceful, purposeful quiet. Affirmations, reprogram your mind to overcome any fears or beliefs that are limiting your potential or causing you to suffer. And he gives you affirmations in the new Miracle Morning app. Visualization, experience the power of mentally rehearsing yourself showing up at your best each day. Exercise, boost your mental and physical energy in as little as 60 seconds. Reading, acquire knowledge and expand your abilities in every area of your life by learning from experts. Scribing, keep a journal to deepen gratitude, gain insight, track progress, and increase your productivity by getting clear on your top priorities. You'll see I talk about my journals. These are my journals from the past 5 years. And some of my journal entries, I just draw pictures. Sometimes they're 3 or 4 or 5 pages. Sometimes they're just 1 page. But just the act of journaling has been so life-changing for me. I journal on a regular basis now, and I'll meditate and I'll go through these practices. And Miracle Morning really played a big role in this. So for this conversation, and you'll notice this on my podcast, I try to have conversations with people that you're not going to hear in other places. And one of my favorite parts is when I'm talking with someone and there's a moment where they go, oh, I didn't realize that. And there's one of those moments during this conversation. And there's things that I haven't heard Hal talk about, parts of his life that I'm really excited to share with you. His journey has been bumpy, and he bounces back. I want to get to the core of that. How can he bounce back? And his college journey, you'll see, he talks a little bit about that, but went to a lot of different community colleges, different path. But he's capable of doing anything, of really pushing himself, ran an ultra marathon. He has done so many things that are exciting and interesting and inspiring. So with that, I'm so excited for you to check out The Miracle Morning. You can check out the app. You can go to the website. And I hope that you will get to know Hal and appreciate who he is and what he offers to the world. Enjoy the conversation. All right, so Hal, I got to be honest. My wife, I just talked to her, and she said, have a good time with your conversation with Hal. And I said, it's really not a big deal. And she looked at me, she goes, it's not a big deal. I go, it's just a conversation. I enjoy my conversations with you. And then what I did, Hal, is I walked upstairs and I got these, okay?
Okay.
These are my journals, okay,
Wow.
Hal? And the first journal that I started was the one that you encouraged me and helped me to get started when I read Miracle Morning. And here's Miracle Morning.
Awesome.
So I want to be clear. It is a big deal to talk to you.
I appreciate that. Harlan, thank you, man. Those are kind words.
Oh, I'm so excited because journaling and having the courage to be able to share my own thoughts and feelings and ideas has been life-changing. And going through a Miracle Morning has been life-changing. And having the chance to visit with you, this was something that I had really wanted to do for a while. So first, I want to start with gratitude.
Awesome.
I'm really grateful that we can be here together. Then in my journal today, and my journal is a mess. I am the messiest journal. My journal can be a mess. I wrote, Hal is someone in my corner. Okay. And you are. And you're in so many people's corner, Hal. And I think that there's a lot of people who don't even recognize the people who are in their corner, and the chance to visit with someone who's in my corner, because I'm in so many people's corner, is such a wonderful gift. So I just wanted to just express such gratitude, because there's so many other things you could be doing right now, Hal, right?
Yeah, brother. Well, I'm grateful. This is what I am doing right now on this day, in this moment, Harlan, talking to you. I know that means a lot. You have a way with words and just authentic sentiment that you just shared. You mentioned being in people's corner, and I feel like for me, there's so many authors that I've never met, right? That are my greatest mentors, and they don't know it, but their books and their philosophies have impacted me tremendously. So I'm very grateful that I could impact you, who's impacting so many other people.
Well, not only, I know you impact me, there's some other people who you mentioned in the most updated edition of Miracle Morning, and we're going to talk about that. And there's so many people who, I think really are going to love having you in their corner. And in fact, so I'm such a big fan of Miracle Morning. I'm such a big fan of, we live in a world where we feel so alone so frequently, and there's a lot I want to talk to you about. Things that I haven't heard you talk about. And I'm going to send people to the places to hear the things that you talk about a lot, because you're so articulate when you talk about, and we'll get into a little bit of Miracle Morning, and we're going to talk about the 5-minute rule, but I want to really get into some things, because I want to hang out with you. I want to hang out with John Vroman, and I know John just through speaking circles.
Yeah.
And I just I want to get to know you, and there's some things I want to share, but I wanted to let you know what came in to me today.
Okay.
Because I've been advocating and sharing Miracle Morning, and the new app is phenomenal. Playing around with your app. That app is beautiful. It's great. And people can download the Miracle Morning app, and it will walk you through what the Miracle Morning is, and we'll share with you what it is. But this came in this morning to me. Say, good morning, Harlan. Allow me to take a moment to express my gratitude to you. And whenever anyone expresses gratitude, I'm like, this is great. And I don't want to make this about me, but it really is about you. A while ago, you'd posted about journaling in reference to the Miracle Morning. This was a practice that I had always been terrible at, but was interested in trying to do more regularly. After a long library wait, I read the book and I loved it! I've been employing the tenets for a few weeks now to great success. This morning, I came across a new affirmation by Hal Elrod that I loved. This person, I sent a note to this person, and I said, do you have any idea that I was talking to Hal this afternoon? and this person, Megan, said no. She sent me a note back. This is just the universe.
Yeah.
And then she said, so I came across this new affirmation by Hal Elrod I loved, and I thought how grateful I was to you and your college tips for all the great advice. In fact, you're the subject of gratitude in my journal today, which is this ridiculous gratitude chain.
Yeah.
And I thought I should go further and express my feelings directly to you if I could. So here we are. And there was a little bit more, but man, isn't that cool?
That's wild, man. You're the third person, in the last or today that has explained some wild synchronicities. So, so there's some. Maybe it was because the eclipse yesterday, right?
That's okay. Ask you, did you watch the eclipse?
I did. We're here in Dripping Springs where we got total view of it. So we watched it. It was cool.
So I got 3 kids. I have an 18-year-old, I have a 15-year-old, and I have a 10-year-old.
Okay.
And my 10-year-old was like, "Can we see the eclipse?" This was where was I? I was somewhere. I don't even remember. It's been so crazy. I got a couple stories I don't know how much time you have. This is good stuff. Because I thought of you again. I got in a big fight with my wife on this is good. I'll just tell you about the fight first. Okay. I'll tell you about the fight.
Was I involved in the fight? Was there somehow
she likes you a lot. No, that's not it wasn't that. No, what happened is I was doing something on my social media, because my social media has really exploded in the past 2 years. It's been really wild what's been going on. And I was uploading a video, and she came into the kitchen and was making coffee, and she was leaving. And I said, I just need to finish this video because I had to edit it. I had to edit the video. So I was editing the video, and she said, "Can you just stop for a moment?" And I said, "I just wanted to finish this last. I had to just record this one piece." And my wife does a lot on social media.
Yeah.
And she got so mad at me, and I was like, "Don't you understand? Like, you do this. I mean, I just have to finish this one edit. It's in my head,
and you're in the middle of it, and you can't stop. I can relate to this, Harlan.
Right. It's like the script is running. I've done the video. I need to include one little thing that will take 5 seconds, but she needed me in that second, but I needed to finish this. And I'm working in the kitchen because I work from home and everything is a work area. And she did that. She got so frustrated with me and went upstairs. And then I went upstairs to try and give her attention, and I gave her some dedicated time. And then I had my phone in my hand. She goes, "Put your phone." I go, "I just thought I'd edit while I talk to you." She goes, "That's not dedicated time." And I said, I came up here to be nice. And now you're frustrated with me. And she got so mad. And I hate upsetting my wife. Like, I love my wife.
Harlan, I relate to all of this.
I love my wife so much. Like, I adore my wife. And every minute I get to spend with my wife is truly a gift, right? So she left, and I was like so frustrated, so mad. And I was like, how can't she understand? 'Cause she does a lot of social media too. And we compliment each other. And then about 5 hours later, I was like, no, 3 hours later, I was like, God, I was such an asshole. Like, I was such an asshole. And the thing is, I've been so overwhelmed lately, Hal. And I haven't been doing my practice as much as I like to do it. I've been so overwhelmed because things have been so wonderful and so exciting and so busy. And there's so many pressures being a father, and I love John's Front Row Dads. I love the work y'all do. And anything I mention that I share with Hal today, any of you here, write it down. Like, do a deeper dive, because I'm not going into the nuts and bolts of Hal's story. We're going deeper. And the thing is, I felt so bad, and I apologized to my wife, and I went to Trader Joe's, and I said, "I'm going to Trader Joe's to buy you flowers, like an orchid, because when you F up, you get your wife flowers." And I go, "Steph, I'm so sorry." I go, "I am so sorry that I got so caught up in the moment." And I blame my ADHD, right? But it wasn't my ADHD. It was a factor. But the thing is, I lost sight of the moment. I lost sight of the moment. And I was so upset that I lost sight of the moment, because I adore my wife. And I know that if, God forbid, something were to happen to her or to me, I would look back at that moment and think about the video. Get the shit about the video. It was that moment. And it reminded me, and you remind me, Hal, of the moment, being present, right? And then the eclipse. We're recording this the day after the eclipse. How did you feel during the eclipse?
I didn't feel much. In fact, as I'm watching my family out there with their goggles on, and I actually cared more about getting a picture of my family looking at the eclipse, because I think it's an entertaining picture, than looking at the eclipse myself. What was cool though is it was actually really cloudy, and for a while we couldn't see. We're going, oh my gosh, we couldn't see the sun. We're not going to see the eclipse. We can't even see the sun. And it just so happened right before it was going to be a total eclipse, the clouds slightly parted ways, but it was wild. The entire sky lit up in this wild way. Then it got dark and rain. So it was a cool experience. But
it didn't really. It's interesting because I was recording it. I had 2 cameras. We drove to Indianapolis from Chicago.
Oh wow!
My 10-year-old really wanted to go. And at the last minute, I decided to go because the school wasn't doing that much, and my 15-year-old went with me as well. And we actually went, and we went to Indy. It was like a trek, it was like a destination. There were hordes of people, so it was like we were all part of this like primal thing of going to a place and seeing this event. And then there was music, and then there was the actual eclipse. And my 10-year-old tapped me and goes, "Dad, stop with your camera and be present. Stop with your camera." And I stopped. And I was present. And it was like something awesome touched me of being present. Like, the eclipse forced me to be present. And your experience was different than mine. Where like I like to document and keep the moment so I could have the moment later. But my 10-year-old was like, "Dad, be present." And I was. And I think that's so much about what you do, and what I try to do is to help people to be present. And do you feel that's also part of what you do?
Yeah, I would say present, and I would also use the word aware or self-aware, maybe more specifically. But
Yeah.
what happens is, and intentional actually. I'd say present, aware, intentional. And I think intentional might be underneath all of it, because when you're intentional about being present, being aware, you have to be intentional, right? It doesn't happen by accident. And that's one thing, recently I was talking to us about the Miracle Morning, and they actually, explained it that way. They said most people are just reactive. We wake up in the morning, we grab our cell phone, and we start reacting to notifications, reacting to text messages, reacting to apps. And if you think about that, what that actually does, it puts us in a reactive state, right? Everything that we experience in life, we experience from whatever state we are in, our mental, emotional state of consciousness, however you want to call it. But so if you start your day in a reactive state, you then are reactive all day long. You are a reactive version of yourself, reacting to other people, reacting to problems, reacting to external stimuli, and you feel out of control. And when we feel out of control in our lives, we experience stress, anxiety, fear, depression, so on and so forth. So anyway, reflecting back what you said, the Miracle Morning enables you to start the day with intention and self-awareness. And what was the word that you used? I forgot already.
Being present.
Being present, yeah. Being totally present to the moment at hand. And then you realize I'm in control of my mind, body, and spirit. How do I want to show up today? How can I show up at my best for myself, for the people that I love, for the people that I lead? That's where that Miracle Morning, just the essence of it, is so valuable.
Right. The rituals, the habits of getting up and going through savers, silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing, and all of my journals. This scribing. I never journaled, hated journaling, thought it was a waste of time and energy, and I love it, and it's really helped me in so many ways. So, Hal, you have such a great story. It's such an interesting story. One thing I love about you, there's a lot of things I really appreciate, but I love this embracing of mediocrity at points in your life. Even going back to being a young adult, a teenager, and you talked about feeling mediocre, and that's accurate. And I was trying to do more research on like your younger life. Yeah, it was hard for me to find a lot on your younger life. And I'm not going to push in any area.
I'm happy to go into any direction that you want and open up as much as you want about any aspect of my life, just so you know.
Yeah. I don't know if that's been intentional or people don't ask you about, I know you DJ'd as a teenager and in high school and had those experiences, but, I want to understand do you have siblings? So
I have two sisters. One sister, Haley, is a year and a half younger than me. And then my other sister, Amory, is 7 years younger than me, and she passed away when I was 8 years old of heart failure. So she was just a baby.
Wow, has to be a traumatic thing to go through as a family. Yeah. And your dad, you're really close with your dad.
Yeah, close with both my parents, really. If I had to, pick, my dad and I maybe are a little closer, but my mom and I are very close as well. And my dad was there when I had my cancer experience. He's an executive for an oil company. He just dropped everything and flew to where I was and called his boss and said, "Hey, if you can keep my job for me, that's great, but I'm not leaving my son's side until he's better." And, so we really grew close during that time.
Yeah. And I've seen those pictures that you've posted of you and your dad. And, if you have, there's a picture of Hal, I don't even know where I saw it, at what point, of just like all these drugs, like all this medication that you were taking to recover. And you're doing well, correct? Are you doing well health-wise?
Yeah. So I was diagnosed with this rare aggressive cancer when I was 37. I'm 44 now, so almost 7 years ago. And given a 20% chance of surviving. And I really resisted chemotherapy. I didn't want to, I viewed it as poison. At that time, I didn't take any pharmaceutical drugs, anything like that. And I'm as natural and holistic as I can be. And some of the best holistic oncologists in the country said, you don't have a cancer that gives us the time to try different natural remedies. You're going to be dead in 1 to 3 weeks. So I had 1 to 3 weeks to live. My heart was failing, my kidneys were failing, and my lungs were failing. And so kind of almost against my will, I'm like, I don't want to do chemotherapy. It's going to just, wreak havoc on my body. But what I decided to do was, you know what? If I have to do chemo, I will complement it and support it with the best holistic practices that are available. And so I really went deep down that rabbit hole of what are the best holistic practices and protocols and healer, so on and so forth, so that I could detox from that chemotherapy.
Yeah. And that whole story of, having cancer, dealing with your mortality as a young man, a father, dealing with 2008, going through your financial crisis that you're so articulate of, really essentially having your house, you have to potentially give up your house because you lost all your money and you were and you're such a successful person and you have all of these like back and forths, you always bounce back, man. Like the thing about you, Hal, and this is why Hal, you got to learn about Hal. You got to learn about Hal because, and there's so much out there. If you really want to learn about Hal and the car accident and being dead for how many minutes?
6 minutes.
6 minutes, right? 6 minutes, not having a heartbeat and bouncing back. But I want to go a little earlier too, and this is all huge. I don't want to minimize any of this.
Sure.
For those of you who are hearing this for the first time, you're like, Harlan, how are you just glancing over these? These are big moments.
Yeah.
These are big moments. But the thing that I want to try to grasp is how you go from someone being mediocre, like thinking that you're not all that, to being able to build, because I don't know if it was born. I feel like you nurtured this, Hal. Would you agree with that? Nurtured your ability to be resilient and bounce back?
I think so. Yeah, I think that it was developed. When I was older, and there's definitely, it's hard to know what are the nature components, but a lot of it was the nurture in terms of having a mentor. Not only that, learning from my parents on how they bounced back, from losing my sister and other challenges in their life. So I think my parents are really resilient, so they definitely modeled that for me.
Yeah.
But at 19, I really started learning, personal development and really evolving my mindset.
So you're in college. So you go to college, and I couldn't find, where did you go to college? You share that?
Yeah, I've been to probably 4 different junior colleges, but the first one was College of the Sequoias in Visalia, California, Central California.
Yeah. And that part of you, because like I'm someone who never felt like I'm enough. Like I still struggle with this. The reason I like work so hard is because like young Harlan is really overweight, uncomfortable, is barely lucky. He's lucky to be liked. He makes people laugh because if he makes people laugh, they won't make fun of him and they'll like him. And I'm able to do extraordinary things because it's a fluke.
Yeah.
It's like, that's like kind of my profile. And I kind of felt a little bit of a connection to, so the junior college piece and going through 4, like, why'd you go to 4?
So the first junior college I went to was because it's, graduate high school, supposed to go to college. My friend was going there. I thought, I'll go with you and we'll be roommates. That's how that started. And then I started a career in sales at 19, and that I started making such a great income on a commission-based business or a commission-based salary that I was like, I don't want to go to college. Like, this is my career. I want to do this for the rest of my life. And then I moved to the Bay Area, and I was like, I want to go back to college. And so I went back to another junior college out in San Jose, California. But just took classes. I wasn't trying to get a degree at that point. It was like, what am I interested in? So I took public speaking. I think I took psychology. It was like, what do I really want to learn about? Not, I want to get this degree at the end of the 4-year, run.
Right. It's messy.
Yeah.
Was it messy or did it feel comfortable?
What do you mean?
When you were going, so you go to the junior college, and then what happened when you were 19, and this is what's so interesting, is Hal's relationship when it comes to his mentor, when it comes to Cutco, being a knife representative. I know Cutco. I know a lot of people done Cutco. John Israel. Are you friends with John too?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's part of your inner circle. And John came up to me at an event, I don't know, so many years ago, and he had like my books, and he's just such a good guy. Mr. Thank You, and anyone should check out John Israel's work. He does amazing work, and I'm grateful for him as well. And he's had a lot of success when it comes to Cutco. But I want to understand, you're 19 years old, you're going to your junior college, and then how did you? I know you have a friend. It was a friend, but tell me, because that Cutco piece is so important, because that's where you learn so much.
Yeah.
That became foundational, right?
Yeah. So for a buddy of mine was selling Cutco cutlery, and I was a radio DJ. I was on 97.1 FM, and it was my second radio station I'd been on. I was on one when I was 15 in high school, and that was my dream, was pursuing radio. And my buddy Teddy was always trying to, hey, you should, I could get you to sell Cutco. You'd be great at it. And I was like, I'm not a salesperson. I have no desire to go sell kitchen knives,
Right.
And one day I was with Teddy and we met. I went to the office with him just because I was in the car and he had to stop by his office. And I met the manager, Jesse Levine. And Jesse really explained it in a way that I hadn't thought of it before. Meaning he said, wow, Hal, you set your own schedule. There's no ceiling on your income. Here's the possibilities that you can earn, and, on and on. And I went, wow, this sounds really interesting. He was just an enthusiastic, likable guy, right? Which that's what selling is often, is transferring enthusiasm and belief in an opportunity or product. In this case, it was the opportunity to sell Cutco. And so I started selling Cutco, and I go through training. And on my second day of training, that's where, you mentioned the shift of from being mediocre my whole life, feeling like I wasn't special, I wasn't capable, I was a class clown, I didn't have any real great abilities. And on my second day of training, a belief was born that I think for anybody listening right now, it's one of the most important foundational beliefs for us to have, which is we found out that, hey, the all-time Cutco record for the most ever sold in the first 10 days, called your Fast Start, it was just broken last week by a 19-year-old young woman in Visalia, California, where I went to, it's Bakersfield, California. And here's the belief. I went, why not me? If that 19-year-old girl could do it in Bakersfield, not Beverly Hills, right? I wasn't envisioning her in some mansions. But if she could do it, why not me? And I think that's the belief is, if another human being has done something, overcome something, accomplished something, that's evidence of what's possible for every single one of us. And so that was the spark, that was the seed that was planted, that I went and I started just considering it. Then I talked to my mentor. I said, what do you think? Could I do it? He said, I believe in you. I'll support you, and the rest is history, as they say.
Right. So why not me? And I love that question. I had a similar situation when my brother encouraged me to try to be an intern at the Tonight Show with Jay Leno. When I was
Nice.
And I told him to be quiet. I got angry with him. Like, you say that? Because the idea was, I don't know anyone. I'm in Bloomington, Indiana. I have no connection to California and Los Angeles and the Tonight Show. And he said, if someone's going to do it, why can't it be you? And after getting angry with him, I called up NBC Studios. Eventually I got the internship, and it was a life-changing experience. But it's this question of why not me?
Yeah.
And it's a question that, I still sometimes ask myself, why not me? I look around, there's so much noise, and we see all these other people, and the FOMO and just the constant input of why not me? And I think so much of it comes down to, when we look in the mirror, we don't think we're enough.
Yeah.
And we struggle feeling like we're worthy. And I want to understand your relationship with rejection when it comes to you. When you look in the mirror, and you see yourself, do you still struggle with self-rejection? Do you still find yourself having to work through those feelings?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I love Ben Hardy's book, The Gap and the Gain. Have you read that yet?
I haven't. I'm going to write it down.
It's a must read, The Gap and the Gain. And it's basically just that most of us live our lives in the gap, which is where we're constantly measuring everything from who we are, where we are, how successful we are, how happy we are, on and on and on. We're measuring it against the gap between where we are right now and our ideal, or some unreachable ideal. And when you live in the gap, where you're always measuring between where you are and or another person, you look at your spouse and you measure her between the gap, right? Like, well, her compared to this perfect human that I envision she should be, right? When we live our lives in the gap, we constantly feel inadequate, insecure, unaccomplished, scared, on and on. Whereas the gain is measuring where you are compared to where you were, right? It's only measuring progress. And so I find that I'm in the gap a lot. I've got to be really conscious and intentional about being in the gain. I'm looking at, I could be a better dad. why didn't I do more? I'll see something where, front row dads, for example, and they're like, yeah, my kids are, 4 and 6 and we're doing these things every week and these daily rituals. And I'm like, shoot, my kids won't do that. They're 14 and 11. But gosh, if I would have done that when they were little, we'd be so right? So yes, I live in the gap all the time. And in looking in the mirror, right? It's like, oh, I should be further along financially, So yes, I struggle with that every single day, and it's a conscious effort. And my affirmations, to be, pointing you back to the Miracle Morning,
Right.
The affirmations are the most important tool in my toolkit to keep me focused on what I aspire to, what I'm committed to do and think and believe and how I'll behave in order to live into, my vision. And also always affirming that I am just as worthy, deserving, and capable of anything I want as any other person on this planet. And that it ties into that belief, why not me? If another person can do it, so can I. And so for us, I believe that self-worth is often, and at least it starts with choosing it and just logically acknowledging I'm just as worthy as any other person on the planet. Like, I'm inherently just as worthy.
Yeah.
Right? It's whatever I decide.
It's scary. It's so scary because once you believe it, then you have to take a risk. You take a step in the direction of where you want to go. And that's a space where I live in. I'm obsessed with rejection and not trying to get rejected, but being able to separate the emotion, that information's not emotional. We attach emotion. Rejection's this thing, this universal rejection truth, this law of nature that says not everyone and everything will always respond to me the way I always want. It's a law of nature that isn't reflective of my value or worth. It's a reflection of nature in the world we live in. And it really helps me to be willing to believe in myself, because if there's a truth that's bigger than me that says, I can be the best and the brightest and still not get where I want to go. And how your humility, your vulnerability, your continued strength in sharing where your gaps are. So for people who are just joining or aren't familiar with the Miracle Morning, this is Hal Elrod's book, and there are over 2 million copies sold. This book has transformed my life. About 4.5 years ago, I started to practice the Miracle Morning. I am a occasional practicer. I incorporate 1 or 2 or 3 of the elements on a daily basis. My Miracle Mornings are not always consistent, but the days where they are some of my most wonderful, grounding, incredible days. This updated edition of the book, you can see there's a couple extra sections. One is the Miracle Evening, and then there's Your Miracle Life. And I have a limited amount of time with Hal today. So you can read this. For those of you who are listening, check it out. The audiobook is great. I listened to the audiobook because I'm not a great reader. So you have all this. You also have the app. But this is about intention. It's about setting your day and setting your intention. And the intention of self-worth is really where I want to play around a little bit more of like you with your self-worth. I watched your documentary, Hal, the Miracle Morning documentary. How did you feel about, there's a full-length documentary that Hal debuted. I bought tickets for the screening.
Thank you, brother.
I was in it, and I've been kind of a silent observer, just watching. But I want to know your take, because making a movie about something you're so passionate about, pouring your heart and soul and energy, showing intimate moments of your life is an incredibly vulnerable experiment.
Yeah. The movie, it wasn't what we expected. I mean, it was initially interviewing all these world-renowned, authors and experts and athletes about their morning rituals and showing kind of this Miracle Morning movement and the impact lives it was impacting. Halfway through filming the movie, 2 years into it, I was diagnosed with that cancer, and I called our director and said, "Hey, the movie needs to be put on hold. I've got to fight for my life right now." And he said, after we talked for a while, and he's a good friend, Nick Conadera, and he said, "Hal, this is the movie now. I need to film you beating cancer so we can inspire people with your mindset and how you approach it." And I was like, "Well, let me talk to Ursula, my wife. We weren't planning on filming me, my cancer journey, but okay." So thankfully we did, because as the movie really, I think that was the best part is really the last half of it, when I'm diagnosed with cancer and going through that in real time and really testing all the practices and principles that I've been teaching. I will say this, being vulnerable for me that's one thing that's never been, maybe not never, but I think it was actually when I was in my early to mid 20s. I heard Robin Sharma say, when you're vulnerable with people, they fall in love with you because they see your humanity.
Yeah.
And I remember giving a speech, and it was right after my car accident, maybe a year after, and one of my first speeches, and I had brain damage from the car accident. My short-term memory was really impacted. And I was so nervous. I'm supposed to be a speaker, but I forget things, I can't remember things. And so I'm doing my speech, and I've got my notes there. I'm trying not to look at them too much, just as I need to. And I went off on a tangent, and then I forgot. I was just blank. I did not remember where I was. I looked at my notes. I didn't know where I was. And I said, "Hey, y'all, I need your help right now." I said, I have brain damage, and my memory is impacted, and I don't remember what I was talking about. So this is a team effort right now, and I need y'all to remind me, where was I in my speech? And people start shouting out, "You were telling that story about your mom." And I was like, "Okay, yeah. But where was I at in the story?" And you were telling, and finally, with their help, I remembered. I got back on track, and there was this sense of like community and teamwork. And in that moment, I went, "Oh, that's what Robin Sharma meant about when you're vulnerable, people fall in love with you because they see your humanity, because we all mess up. We all forget names. We all, but we're often trying to come across as flawless and perfect. That's our ego at work, versus the more you can just be real without being, whiny and complaining and victim-y, but you can just be like, "Hey, I messed up," or right. Even in a relationship, an apology is being vulnerable. And do people love you when you're digging your heels and saying, "No, what I said was right. I know it hurt your feelings, but it was justified." No. But when you are vulnerable and you apologize, you admit fault, that's when immediately people feel at ease and connected.
Yeah. Well, I forget stories. I was speaking the other day, and that happened. and I asked somebody, and they shared, it was like in a smaller setting, and they gave me the cue. And it makes you so much more relatable because you're a world-class speaker.
Yeah.
You're a record-breaking salesperson. You have a book that connects. And it's interesting how being vulnerable wasn't hard for you. Like you just naturally can put yourself out there and be exposed. What judgment are you, and maybe you aren't worried about judgment, but is there any judgment currently, Hal, that kind of hits a nerve?
Yeah, for sure. I always, so this is major for me, is I'm a perfectionist like many of us are. And I'm my harshest critic like most of us are. Right. And so, almost most things I put out, I feel like, man, that's not perfect. So example, almost every time I record a solo episode of a podcast, right, it's probably 90% great. But when I end it, I'm like, I should re-record that, man. That one part, I totally messed that up. And, and then there's also just feeling like I have a general insecurity that people don't like me, that people don't like me, that they, I don't know what that is. And I also know logically that most people like me, and I'm a really genuine, nice person. But there's some sort of weird insecurity and self-judgment that I could be doing better, and people are going to see that. Maybe it's a little imposter syndrome, I don't know.
Do you think you've always been able to say what you just said, to articulate what you just said? Like if it was 20 years earlier in your career, or if you were a teenager, would you be able to say that publicly?
I don't know if I would have. I will say this: when I was being inducted into the Cutco Hall of Fame, and they said, you're going to get your awards and your family's going to be there, and so you can give a thank you speech, right? Thank everybody that helped you along the way. I thought, I don't want it to just be a thank you speech. I want it to add value for people. And so I asked myself, what's the greatest lesson that I feel like I can that I embody, that I can share with people, on this special night? And the lesson was based about loving all people unconditionally. And I said, there's that famous cliche phrase that actions speak louder than words. I said, but who amongst us hasn't said something that didn't reflect your true character, your true intentions, did something that you later regretted because it wasn't in alignment with who you truly are and what you aspire to. You did it out of fear or insecurity. I said, so actions might speak louder than words, but only a person's intention, their true intention, reveals their soul, right? Meaning if you understand, oh, that person did or said this thing and it came off as arrogant, but when I look underneath, I realize they were just trying to be loved, or they were just trying to help, or they were just like, what? So to me, I think that for me, it's always been, like, hey, my intentions are pure. And that was my biggest insecurity when I was younger, was for people to, when they would judge me because I'm a loudmouth and I talk fast and I'm this and I'm that. And so people would go, oh, that guy is arrogant, or he's this. And I go, no, that's not who I am. And that was my biggest insecurity growing up, which I'm just realizing this as I'm talking through it, was that I want people to know my heart. And I think this is true for all of us, to know the real me. And gosh dang it, I say things and I do stupid things. I say stupid things and I come off in a way that isn't who I truly am. And the last thing I'll say on that is that realization, one night I emailed like 23 people in my life in different capacities. I wrote about this in the original edition of the Miracle Morning. But I wrote an email and I said, hey, I'm trying to become a better version of myself. And I know I have a lot of blind spots. Would you please share with me the things you see in me that rub you the wrong way, that upset you, that offend you, right? And so that was, I said, you won't offend me, just be honest. And sure enough, it hurt my feelings a lot to get all that feedback, more than I thought that it would. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that's powerful. I mean, what you just said, yes, the circumstance why people rejected you being willing to listen and acknowledge the information and try and make sense of it to be the best version of you, because intention doesn't always equal outcome. And then it hurts because we have this vulnerability that is just part of growing up and being a pleaser, someone who wants to help and serve. And we can't always help and serve everyone, but it's helpful for me to hear about some of your insecurities and just to have a moment with you. And hopefully we'll have more moments because, I love the Miracle Morning, savers, going through the silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, scribing, using the app so Hal can walk you through. Because, Hal, you're such a interesting, passionate, a light source. I love the cover. I love that it's so light. I love that there's sun. I love that the app has a sun that comes up. I know we got to wrap in a sec, but I want to leave everybody with the 5-minute rule, and I want you to share the 5-minute rule in under 5 minutes. Yeah, but explain, because when we want to please and make people happy, or when we feel bad about rejection, or we feel shame or pain, I just wanted you to share this tool with everyone. Yeah, I learned this when I was 19 years old in that same Cutco training from that same mentor, Jesse Levine. I ended up, it's basically the idea that when something happens that upsets you, you have two choices. You can either resist reality and wish it didn't happen, or you can accept reality and be at peace with it. And the 5-minute rule is where you set your timer whenever you get upset over something, whether it's traffic or someone says something to you, and you ultimately, that timer goes for 5 minutes and you fully process your emotion, get upset, angry, yell, whatever you need to do. When the 5-minute timer goes off, you say 3 very powerful words, and those are can't change it. And can't change it is an acknowledgement that I can't change what just happened, so now I got this choice. I can continue to dwell on it, wish it didn't happen, and be upset, or I can be completely at peace with it. The choice is mine. And at first it's difficult. The 5-minute timer goes off. You might still be frustrated. But after you do this consistently, you become more aware of how you're responding to something you can't change. And then you start to understand that I do have the choice to accept it and be at peace with it. Yeah. And that it's such a powerful tool. It's a reflection. We have to process our feelings. We have to understand other people's perspectives. And it's hard to do that quickly, but as you do it over time, it really helps to soothe a lot of the pain that we feel when things don't go as planned. Hal, I'm so grateful to have you here. If there's something that someone can take advantage of, a resource that you can point someone to, and I'm going to share in the show notes some of my favorite podcasts that you've been on, the resources, the app, the book, your podcast. Is there anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to check out miraclemorning.com. That's the hub for just about everything Miracle Morning related. So you can watch the free Miracle Morning documentary, which is, 4.6 out of 5 stars on Amazon Prime. It's a really well-received documentary. Very inspiring.
By the way. Loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I didn't get to tell you that. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. You can watch the documentary there for free. You can download the free app. You can find all the books there. Miraclemorning.com is a great spot to check out.
Well, I have so much gratitude, and I want to thank you for being in my corner. And if there's ever anything I can do to help you, to serve the people who turn to you, I just want you to know I am so happy. I'm so happy to offer and to be a light source as well. And I just want to thank you for being so generous and sharing some of your insights with everyone today.
Awesome. Thank you, Harlan. I appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, Hal. See you, man. Appreciate it.